Welcome to the State of .NET 9 webinar here with us, and we'll talk about all things .NET, all things modernization, and try to have a little fun. As we stand today, it's January, and we have had .NET 9 release come out in 2024 November. Every November we get a new .NET. And modern.NET is very friendly. It's welcoming to everybody. Again, Microsoft slides that you may have folks have seen. It runs on every platform. Tooling is great. Ecosystems are great. So what's not to like? You can reach just about any device, any platform with modern.NET. So we're sitting on a good place. But we want to do more. There is a lot going on with .NET all across different platforms and tools and technology stacks. We want to enable you to be a little bit more successful using the parts of .NET that you find passion for, but also keeping an eye out for whatever is new, something else in .NET that you may not be using, but that might be very useful to your workflows. We are here to make you folks a little bit more productive. If you're already using Telerik DevCraft family of products, thank you for your patronage. If you're new to the family, hopefully you'll see we have a lot to offer. We make UI components for both .NET and JavaScript for modern web, mobile desktop apps. But we also do a lot of enterprise workflow type enabling tooling. So that's reporting, that's network debugging, that's testing. We also do play heavily in the design and the development space. So you folks can bring in your design system, customize things, and have a better place to start off your apps as you're building modern apps with .NET. So we are here essentially just to help. With .NET 9, we always try to stay on the bleeding edge, but at the same time bring everybody else along. If you're using older .NET frameworks, that's fine too. It's running your workflow, it's running your business. But if you are ready to jump onto the modern and the latest and greatest .NET, we are here to support you. We had day zero support for .NET 9 when it came out in November, and we wrote all about it. All of our products are compatible with the latest .NET, and if you're looking for content that's inspiring as to what you can do with modern.NET, check out our blogs. That's blogs.telerik.com. Client apps. The web is ubiquitous, but if you look into what's in your pocket, it's a smartphone. If you look into what's driving your enterprise workflows, it's a lot of desktop apps. So how are we building those apps with modern.NET? Let's take a look. This is my kind of 1 minute spiel on all things mobile. And you have a lot of choice because there's a lot of different frameworks that are all trying to enable mobile first experiences. If you want to build native mobile apps, Windows and then iOS or Android, by all means, go for it. It's just expensive because 3 different code bases towards the same app. You would much rather build cross-platform apps these days, and you got a lot of choices. If you want to invest in web stacks, you got all of the SPA frameworks, Angular, React, Bootstrap, and Vue, and all of those things. And you can make some very nice touch-friendly mobile-first experiences. You can start with mobile web and maybe take it all the way in with a PWA. You can also build cross-platform native apps with JavaScript. And again, there are frameworks to help you out. If you would rather write higher level languages like C#, F#, and then compile them down into native binaries, that's where .NET plays. That's where you had Xamarin. Now you have .NET MAUI, and there are some other players in the mix as well. So lots of choices. Pick your stack based on what you want to maintain going forward. If you would rather target desktop, and we get a bad rap sometimes, desktop developers, like we are old school, but again, it runs your business. So the top 4 are essentially straight up native Windows stacks, right? And don't let anyone tell you that WinForms or WPF is going away. They're not. They are running on the latest .NET 9, as I'll show you today. UWP, WinUI, more modern UI and UX stacks for Windows. Again, if you want to bring in web, you are more than welcome to, with a PWA, with an Electron, as we'll see with Blazor and, .NET MAUI hybrid, web technologies are starting to be very welcome on desktop. And again, you got other choices in the mix here with Flutter and React Native. So again, lots of options. You pick what is right for you. We're going to look at things from the perspective of a .NET developer today. Again, another Microsoft slide here, but you may have seen this in terms of where investments lie. Again, a lot of web. If you are building a modern web app, go with Blazor, go with PWA. If you are building all things native with a Windows stack, then WinForms, WPF, WinUI, that's your stack. But if you'd rather be somewhere in the middle, That's where some of the cross-platform stories are with hybrid and cross-platform native with React Native or .NET MAUI. So let's talk about .NET in particular, where you are trying to cater to more native, where you want that full platform experience, the API and the native experience on each platform, as well as you want reach with Blazor. So again, you can do both, or you can be somewhere in the middle. So that's why the hybrid story is kind of enticing, because it lets you reuse code that you have for the web onto native mobile and desktop apps. So that's the Blazor and the .NET MAUI hybrid promise. So .NET MAUI has come a long way. It started back in with .NET 6, and now it runs on .NET 9. So we have had 4 major versions, lots of mini releases in between. 2024 was a big year, lots of releases, lots of stabilization, and it is a good story. It is the evolution of cross-platform dev on .NET, meant for mobile, meant for desktop, seamless rendering. That's where we come in as well. But native UI, good performance all around, truly a single shared project. iOS and Android are kind of given because that's where we're coming from Xamarin, but now we're adding desktop as a first, class citizen with WinUI and Mac Catalyst providing you with that abstraction layer, so you can reach desktop. So a truly single shared code base can support both your mobile and desktop apps, and you can welcome web assets into it. So .NET MAUI has been growing and doing very, very well. So again, you can look at some of these numbers from .NET 8 to .NET 9, lots of growth. And again, in .NET 9, we're not going to spend too much time with some of the Microsoft stack. Again, you can catch up with .NET Conf videos and content, but a lot happened with .NET MAUI in .NET 9 as well. You get Android 35, iOS 18 support, Xcode tooling support, Android asset packs, lots of performance tuning, native embedding. A lot happened. So it's a very stable platform that you're coming into now. Yes, things can always improve. There are always issues, but it shows health when people are engaged and people are building actual apps with .NET MAUI. So let's talk about where we can come in and help. We have a suite called Telerik UI for .NET MAUI. It has, again, it's 4 years or so in the making, so really mature at this point, polished and performant UI that renders seamlessly between mobile and desktop apps. So we take care of the hard work. You go enable your app workflows. New in .NET 9 timeframe with .NET MAUI is .NET 9 support and a whole bunch of new things. We are continuously working on some of the hard-hitting things like grids and charts, continuously performance tuning them. We have some big enterprise clients who are building desktop-first apps with .NET MAUI, so their performance needs are through the roof, and we need to make sure that our grids and our charts, satisfy all those needs. AI is big, so we are doing things with AI all across the product suite, not just MAUI, but Blazor and WinForms and WPF. We have a new theming support, which is still in preview, but works gorgeously. So a bunch of new controls, support for the latest frameworks, integrated tooling. If you're coming from Xamarin, we got some migration help for you. If you are looking to upgrade your desktop apps from WinForms WPF onto MAUI, there's some help for you as well. This is very desktop ready as well. Now let's talk about Blazor Hybrid. So the whole idea here is every stack, every OS comes with its own browser. And MAUI is already a native app, but what if we stick in a nice abstracted and smart web view? And then that web view can render all types of HTML, CSS content, including Blazor components and styles, including Angular components, including React components. So all of it suddenly becomes very welcome, because now from your Blazor code, which is .NET, it's running native on the platform. So it's a native app, but now you can tap into all of the platform APIs. Same from JavaScript or TypeScript as well, which is why this story is so nice. So again, Microsoft slide, but you can see that we are using a web view, not depending on Node.js, not bringing in anything else, just pure .NET as a runtime, but that web view gives us the ability to render web components and styles. And again, from a shared code base, we can reach both. This is relatively new in .NET 9. Essentially, it's a template. Ed and me have been talking about doing this for a long time, but in a single solution now, you can have multiple projects where Blazor is driving your experiences for the web app in your browser, but that same web UI can drive experiences on native apps, and it's all controlled through a shared Razor class library. They essentially introduced a new template that does this fairly well. So everything that Ed is going to talk about with Telerik UI for Blazor, just understand, I'm flying through some of the slides so I can get you, show you some demos, but everything that we do for Blazor is very welcome on .NET MAUI. Just understand this, and we are here to support you. If you're rendering our Blazor UI with some adaptive rendering, we are here to help you be more successful. And all of our Kendo UI tools for Angular and React, all of those work as well, because the web view does not care. So you're truly trying to write once and run it everywhere, powered by modern web UI and web UX now on mobile and desktop. Styling. This is interesting because whenever you're working with a designer or a design system and it's a complicated app or it's a family of apps all across your enterprise, your design language really matters, because now you want to be consistent and not have to redo the things over and over again. We think about this quite a bit. We have some tools with ThemeBuilder that help you create that consistent design surface and design system, but also reuse what you already have. Maybe start from a Figma if you have a designer in the house, and then giving you a nice starting point to build modern web apps that you can now share the code and the styles, bring it to mobile and desktop. So we think about this a lot, and we got some page templates, we got some starter kits that help you out quite a bit.
Before we get too far past MAUI, there was a couple folks asking about Microsoft supporting Linux with MAUI. Has there been any updates?
No, unfortunately, no. It is on the team's roadmap, but again, if you look at the number of people who are building apps with MAUI, they think the math is 98% of people are targeting iOS, Android, Windows, or Mac. So as much as Microsoft would like to include Linux in, engineering is not inexpensive for everybody. So you have to wait a little bit more. There are some community pull requests that might get you on Linux, but hold on for a little bit more. All right, so any of your styles that you bring in through ThemeBuilder, through straight up CSS, or maybe Sass, or anything else that you're doing for Blazor, Angular, React, again, just to understand, all of those will also work. Yes, you'll have to do some work to make things render according to the device size, but all of it is welcome. So the tech stack is there and ready for you. Now, let's talk about more desktop stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time, but again, if you're building straight up Windows apps, know that you have 15, 20 years of investments from us to help you build modern, polished, performant apps, be it WinForms, be it WPF, or WinUI. We have polished UI component suites that let you just drop in those controls. You don't have to worry about performance or design system consistency. It's all there. And these are all very, very mature products. Every release that we have, we continue pouring more and more love into these. So these run on .NET framework as well as on modern .NET all the way until .NET 9. So build desktop apps the way you want. Now, before I go into some demos, just a quick, just a word for some of the things that we do that is always there to augment your enterprise workflows. Starting with what we call DPL, or Document Processing Library. We have this as a standalone .NET library, now with support for .NET 9. So if your enterprise workflows need you to work with PDF and Word and Excel, these are very common, use stories and use cases, then we can handle those things for you. You don't have to go to a third-party software. We got all of it. So you have granular control over how you build and how you manipulate PDF, Word, spreadsheets, and so on, and zipping libraries, and all of it with .NET 9 support. And what we do here benefits every one of our product suites. So from Blazor to .NET MAUI to ASP.NET, Xamarin even, so everything benefits from one component library that's .NET running on .NET. Also, you need reporting, because that is what your enterprise workflows require. And our reporting solution is very, very polished after years and years of investment. So it is, a very full-featured reporting solution. It is .NET based, so it starts out from a .NET background, but you can now serve up every type of client that you can think of. So you can design your reports, give your users a lot of choice as to how they design it. There is a standalone designer, there's a Visual Studio designer, there is even a web-based browser designer that does everything that those modern standalone clients and Visual Studio does. So your users have full control over how they design it. Then you can connect it to just about any data source that you can think of. You can embed that and deliver your reports on just about every stack. So Angular, React, Blazor, all things ASP.NET, MAUI, WPF, you name it, it works everywhere. And then you can also automate how you deliver those reports. So these are, very full and rich reporting solutions, and there is no dearth of UI. And all of reporting that I'm showing you runs on .NET 9. And it's one thing to say, to cross a box and say we support .NET 9, but it's a different thing to say we actually genuinely go into every one of .NET 9's performance tuning, and we make sure that our reporting solution benefits from all of the performance tuning. So we go down to a very low level of detail with some of the document processing and with some of the reporting to make sure that you benefit from all of the performance tuning that goes into .NET. So .NET based .NET 9 based Telerik reporting ready for you to use. Let's also talk about Fiddler. This is something all devs, many devs have this as a part of our everyday life. I certainly do, because I don't want to be in doubt as to what's going on in my network. I want a proxy. I want to see full visibility when I'm working with microservices, when I'm working with mobile devices or desktop. Web is kind of a little bit covered with dev tools, but again, it doesn't do everything under the sun. That's where the team collaboration, that's where the cross-platform UI really comes in. So if you have used Fiddler in the past, just so you know, it's a big family of products now. You can still use Fiddler Classic on Windows, but Fiddler everywhere is where our love goes a lot these days. This is the cross-platform tool that runs consistently on iOS, not iOS, I meant Mac, Windows, and all types of desktop solutions, and Linux as well. So what we have with Fiddler is support for different personas. If you're a developer like me and Ed, you can use this all day to check out your APIs, make sure your network stack is good. But QA people will also use it to do to their testing. Support engineers can leverage Fiddler to see what's going on the user side. So it's not just works on my machine, but we don't care about what's going on your machine. We have full visibility. So again, just a quick look at some of the features. Every type of network that you can think of, we got you covered. It's not just HTTP. The reality is when you're building a modern microservices or a cloud native type of an app, you're going to have some web sockets. You're going to have some gRPC or TLS 1.3. All of that traffic is captured. You have granular control over exactly how you pause, how you speed up things up, how you respond to rules. So again, very, very full featured network debugging is at your disposal. We have to talk about AI because that's the world we live in. So to me, AI has multiple ways in which you can come in and try to benefit your workflows. It doesn't always need to be the shiny thing that we always talk about on the UI front. Maybe it's in your data ingestion. Maybe it's in how your data is driving decisions. So it's behind the firewalls. It doesn't need to be a flashy UI, and AI can be very beneficial. It doesn't need to be a public AI cloud all the time. It can be machine learning behind your firewalls, and that works as well. But where the UI surface meets AI is where we come in. We can give you some smart UI, and then developer productivity. As we are writing code, we can be more taking some help in some of the automated things, careful of our IP, not leaving our premises, but still benefiting from Copilot type workflows. Again, some common myths. Again, it's nothing brand new. It doesn't continuously learn when you're using generative AI. Just understand that it's a moment in time. But large or small language models use whatever works for your workflows. Doesn't always need to be the public cloud. And yes, you can fix hallucinations with some good grounding. So there are lots of myths, but again, just understand how to use it for your use cases. We are here to help with some AI components that are smart, which this is where UI meets AI. So we'll show you some that we have experimental things on, and then some very, very experimental things where we are just considering the potential of things. So I would like to show you some of these things in action, and these are again very, very experimental ideas that we are just tossing around. So that's my quick spiel on AI, and let's take a look at things.
There's some specific stuff in chat. There was one about editing HTML code in a what you see is what you get editor, and I believe we have a component for that on our WPF side. Isn't that right?
Oh yeah, we do it all across from WPF to WinForms to Blazor. I mean, it's a rich text box essentially that gives you a menu bar and a ribbon on the top, and then it's like a natural editing experience where you can bring in some HTML, CSS,
Yeah,
or
we
any other
definitely
type
have
of code. Yeah.
the document editor. I was thinking more on the code side. We have a code editor as well.
We do have a code editor that is WinForms and WPF, very rich code editors that learn JavaScript, learn C Sharp, learn Rust, and then you can annotate and decorate your code exactly as you would experience on a code editor. Okay, so where do we even begin? Let's start with MAUI and Blazor. Actually, let me go back and start with where things are with MAUI for a second. This is straight up native. So what I'm showing you is the latest version of our Telerik UI for .NET MAUI. I'm going to pull up the control sample. This, by the way, is the same app that you can see on iOS, Android, and other app stores like Mac or Windows. We give you all the source code so you can run this locally as well. You can try it out from the stores. So it is a big app, but I'm going to try to just pull this up. You can see I'm loading this up on VS Code with the .NET MAUI extension. It's now loaded up and it knows that I can run on my Mac or on my iOS or Android. Let's go ahead and run this really quick. Like I said, this is for straight up native mobile apps as well as straight up desktop first apps as well. We have done a lot of work, as has Microsoft, to make sure all of your desktop needs are well met. Things like multi-windows, things like keyboard support in places, things like accessibility, all of those are things we are thinking about and making sure you can create first generation greenfield desktop apps with .NET MAUI. So it is a big app, so it's building. It's a cold start for me. But once it comes up, you're going to see the .NET MAUI sample app. This is just a sample that shows all of our UI in one place. You probably don't want to have everything in one place like we do here, but this is just a showcase. Let's give it a second for it to come up. Is it up? There it is. Okay, so this is again all of our UI in one place, right? Again, you can look through all of the UI. You can, not take my word, play with it yourself. Some of the newer things we did that are really cool. This came right along with .NET 9. But a lot of times you probably don't want to bring in like 100,000 records to the client side, but you do sometimes have to bring in a decent share. We have a data pager, which is this thing down at the bottom. It lets me page through my content really nicely. Could be a grid, could be a collection view that you throw this on, and then it lets you customize every aspect of this, and you can theme this as well. So a really nice data pager, so I can jump to the last page. I can page through my content really nicely. And again, I can configure every part of the data pager here as well. You can see the display mode and the types of ellipses and the item spacing. All of that is nicely controlled. Another thing we did was a grid splitter. Again, if you are rendering things in a grid and there are rows and columns, but you have some charts and graphs or maybe some images in here. So this is a nice flexible way for you to be able to, for your users to be able to quickly look at more or less information. So it's a splitter that we are throwing in. So there's a lot of UI that's thrown in here for you. Let me just get you into the AI prompt here for a second. So if you are integrating any type of AI service, could be in a public cloud or could be something you do, we give you an AI prompt, and this lets you come up with some prompt suggestions. So you're helping the user do prompt engineering, and then this can be wired up to any type of AI endpoint. So you can bring in ChatGPT, you can bring in all types of AI right inside your app. Excuse me, we just do the UI part for you, so you don't have to rediscover anything. So just a quick look at .NET MAUI, and let's switch gears to bringing in some Blazor now with .NET MAUI. And as usual, Ed, I am talking too fast, just trying to show as many things as I can. So let's look at this one here. This is a newer template. So let me close this. And I'm in on a Mac here, so I can show you things with command line or VS Code. The same experiences light up when you are on Visual Studio on a Windows. So if I go here and do a .NET new, I think it's -- list. So this shows me all the templates that I have installed. These are the same templates that Visual Studio will also show you. But here you can see I got a MAUI template, which is for a straight up .NET MAUI cross-platform app. I can do a MAUI with Blazor, in which case it drops some Blazor components and styles in my MAUI app. This one is new, the MAUI Blazor-Web. So what that does is it assumes that you are trying to build a web app as well as a desktop and a mobile app. So what it does is very carefully, like this is the web solution. This is all of your Blazor UI as as you would intend, but you'll notice that it's actually missing some of the components. It doesn't have all of the components in place, like the index and the other components. And then this is the .NET MAUI app, and it's just all in one solution. This one is also missing the pages. It does have www root just to get it started, like with index.html, but now there's this shared folder, which is the one that has the counter, the home, and the weather, just the classic Blazor getting started experience. All of that is now housed in this shared project, and it's just referenced from both the native app and the web app. And the benefit is now we can do simple interfaces like this one here that's trying to understand where your app is running, where is the web browser running, or the web view running, and getting you a corresponding way to implement it for .NET MAUI and Blazor differently. So if I go ahead and run this app really quickly, this, by the way, is just a new template that you're using. You don't have to use it. You can, roll on your own to create those projects inside the same solution. But you do want to separate out the Blazor UI components and styles away from your Blazor app. So now you can reuse and have the same UI drive your mobile and desktop apps. So we'll give it a second here to come up as well. And once it does, you're not going to see anything different. This is pretty much the standard Hello World MAUI with Blazor experience, with the difference of this one here, that it recognizes that it's running on desktop and it's using Mac Catalyst 18.2. That's because that interface is implemented differently on Blazor versus .NET MAUI. The rest of it is just the Blazor default template, right? So your Blazor and your MAUI code can live side by side, and you can truly share your styles. So if you look at www root, all of your app CSS, your favicons, all of your JavaScript, they can all live in one place and be referenced from both native apps and web apps, which makes things really nice. Okay, and this doesn't need to stop for just .NET stuff. Other stuff is also welcome. So let me show you one quick view of this. Let's pull up this one here. Let's say you're doing Angular, or let's say you're doing React. The same web view is happy to support you on multiple fronts. So what I have done here is this is a MAUI with Blazor app template. Everything is the same. You can see in my pages, I do have the Blazor components, except I'm not using it because my good friend here, Ed, is an Angular developer, and he has a fancy Angular app. And I have just asked him to make me a production build, and these are all the files that he gave me. So essentially an ng build. So this is the Blazor index.html. This is the div tag under which, like, Blazor likes to render all of its Blazor UI content. I'm not using it. I'm using this index.html, which I got from Ed from his Angular app, and this has polyfills. This has it still has the web.js because this web view brings in some of the inner up, which is nice. But this lets me reuse all of my Angular stuff inside of .NET MAUI. So let me just bring up a page here. This one's running on iPad 10 generation. That should be fine. So let's go ahead and run this. Again, cold start, so you're going to see my simulator come in. So again, the versatility of it is bring your web stuff and your styles and your components all to .NET MAUI if you can. So here is a iOS iPad simulator that's coming up. And we'll give it a second. This one was a Hello World Angular app, so ng new, nothing new, just a CLI app. Just a regular ng serve that you'll see for web on the browser. You're going to see that same experience on an iPad. The only difference here is you'll notice that even when it's running on an iPad, I can read the screen dimensions, the width and the height. I can click on this button that says, get me some device info. It shows I'm running on an iPad, and my orientation happens to be portrait. So those are very .NET specific APIs. Those are coming from .NET MAUI, and we are essentially calling into that from TypeScript, right? So that's the interop in action. That's really nice. So JavaScript and .NET, they can talk to each other all day long, which is a really nice use case. Let me expand on this a little bit more, because there was something small done in .NET 9 that's trying to make this a little better. So let's go in here. This one's called the hybrid web view. You have a Blazor web view, but this hybrid web view essentially is trying to make this a little bit easier. So you can call between .NET and JavaScript just a little bit easier. This one is using, if you look at the main page, XAML, I got some native elements in here. These are .NET MAUI native buttons, but then I have a hybrid web view. And if I look at the index HTML, it's bringing in some HTML content, but it also has some JavaScript functions, like it has some listeners. So the idea is to pass raw messages back and forth between .NET and JavaScript, right? So let's go ahead and run this. And again, this is just one more abstracted UI component that you get with .NET 9. So when I run this on a Mac, let's give it a second for it to come up. And what you're going to see is just a standard desktop app, but in this case, we are mixing and matching a little bit of stuff. So all of this purple stuff, this is this hello from Hybrid Review. This is all native UI, but everything under this blue set of buttons, that's all web UI. So I will zoom in a little bit so I can send a message to JavaScript. So now it will say like raw message, hello from C#, and it carries a counter, right? And I can hit click, 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 and you can see the counter go up. So that's C# calling into JavaScript. Now, if I do send a message back to C#, now we got JavaScript calling into C#, and then click, 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 you can see the counter go up. I can invoke synchronous JavaScript, in which case we sent in like these two numbers, and JavaScript had a quick add function, and it added and said, this is your result. I can also do asynchronous JavaScript. So essentially in here, you got a file here that's stating async data.txt. You see that key value pair? That is essentially being returned to us as JSON. So we had a JavaScript function that is returning JSON. It's reading that file, that's IO, and then coming back with some JSON. So that's completely asynchronous as well. So this communication between .NET and JavaScript is all very nicely done. This is again a sample app from the GitHub repo. So go check it out and play around with it. Let's talk about some AI, shall we? And again, a lot of what I'm showing you, all of these are up on our GitHub repo, so you can play around with it. We did some experimental smart components. So let's show you some stuff. So let's begin. I'm stepping a little bit into Ed's world here, but these are so cool that I'm almost tempted to show you some Blazor here. So these are experiments which we ran with Blazor. And let me just go run this. This is all a Blazor app running locally, and it's going to run on my browser. No MAUI in this one. It's just all straight up Blazor. But you can see kind of the things that we are thinking. So I can post a link to the GitHub repo once I'm done and Ed is speaking. But this is a smart search. So we have semantic searches now that we can bring in, powered by maybe Entity Framework or SQL Server, whatever it is. It's just text-based content that we can run some semantic searches on. So in this case, I can type milk and do a search, and it highlights dairy, because even though it doesn't exactly match milk, but it's a semantic match. It's a vector match based on what I'm trying to search on. Same with combo box. I can type in pasta, and it brings back gnocchi and ravioli, because again, they are pasta, even though they're not called pasta. This is a PDF viewer. We have PDF viewers and document processing for every library, but in this one, it's a Blazor app that's loading up a local PDF. And while it's loading up, we chunked up the doc and we sent it off to an AI service to say, can you make sense of this? Let's just say it's a huge legal document or an HR document, right? So before you come in as a user and try to consume this and try to make sense of it, the AI has done some of the work to say, these are your prompt suggestions based on the document that you gave us. This is what we think the document is about. So you can just tap on one and ask a question as to what the document is, or you can just go completely on your own, as if you're just reading the document yourself. So we could say, how does Telerik DevCraft help developers, right? Question mark and generate. So now we are going to literally go off the document again, and it's going to try to come back. This is all live, so it did the chunking and it tried to make sense of it. So it came back with a fairly good response here. Rich UI components, automated tools, reporting solutions, customizable, and blah, blah, blah. So you get the idea how we can really help out the developers as they're going along. So let's show you more of this. And again, all of this is also open source, so you can check out some of the code and how we are pulling this off. Let's look at this from a different angle. let's say you have a desktop app that you're building. Again, this is all experimental here. We are just playing around with things here. I'm not going to try to explain the whole demo. I just want to show you what is potentially possible here. So I'm going to run this on, it's still loading up. My Mac is fine. So let's say we are trying to leverage some AI from a desktop solution in this case. And let's just say you are into stocks and you are buying stocks and selling stocks, and you're building up a dashboard just like all of the stock providers do, and you want to see how your stock is doing over time. So what we have done here is just laid down sample stocks. This may or may not be some of the stocks that I own, but you can see that this is completely random, set of prices that we are just driving. We're just randomizing what the prices are. And here, this is not our actual chart because that's very expensive to render. This is actually Skia-based rendering, so it's super, super quick. This is where you can see some of the grid optimization. And for each like 3 seconds or so, we are going off and trying to figure out, based on that history of the last 3 points, would you recommend we hold, we sell, we buy, whatever it is that you want. So just an example of what is possible if you bring in AI the right way for your solutions. Okay, let's see, what else can I show? Let me quickly share some things on the Windows side. And I'm going to pull up a VM here. I run Windows in a couple of different ways under my desk, but the VM is often the quickest way. So we are going to pull up Visual Studio. Yeah, I don't need to update right now. Let me show you that same search that I showed you for Blazor, now for MAUI. So we're going to load this up, and again, this is a .NET MAUI app, and we are going to run this without any debugging. I understand the text is too small, but again, this is just all embedding based, vector searches, right? So here are some of the list of things we want to show in a grid, and we want to let the user search for it, right? And again, your experiences between desktop and web can be a little different, but you get the idea of semantic search. So here I can search for milk, and when I hit enter, it says matches found 3, and we are actually highlighting the things like dairy products and cheese and produce that help you, find a good match. So again, pass on these benefits of UI powered by AI down to your users. So let's look at 2 more solutions that are really fun to look at. Maybe one of the questions said was like what type of coding assistance we can provide if you are creating a editor. This is actually the rich text editor, and then we can customize it to show some code as well. Here's a rich text editor. This is a WPF app, essentially, is what I'm showing you. And again, this is wired up to OpenAI. So once this app comes up, you're going to see a simple rich text editor, as if you have a user who is typing something that is relevant to them. We are giving them a ribbon and something that's contextual. So this is just a starting document. So we could say, what is WPF, question mark, and I wait, hands off, right, the keyboard, and you see the ghost text. I'll just tab in. That is OpenAI saying, oh, WPF means this, this, and this. So again, as the user is typing, you can go off and try to help in a contextual way. And this doesn't need to be OpenAI. This can be, a model that you have trained and it's customized behind your firewalls. So we can do this all day long based on any type of suggestion that you want to throw into your users. Let me show you another use case of another WPF app where we are using a spreadsheet control. So this is a WPF app which is going to throw in a spreadsheet UI. And again, let's just assume you're making a spreadsheet type UI, for your field users or for your HR reps. So you know the context of what they're asking. And this one here is just faking it. Like I'm trying to know which Formula One driver won the championship in those years. So when I go in here and drag, you know the context of what the user is trying to do, and perhaps we can try to help. So it's all live. So at this point behind the scenes, we made a call to OpenAI to say, for these years, can you tell us which drivers won? Some of the formatting may be a little off, but you get the idea. So for each year, OpenAI comes back to say these are the winners and these are the number of wins they had for the season for them to win that championship. So again, based on the context of what the user is doing, you can really bring in some AI. But do this at your at your comfort level. So not everything needs to go to public AI. You can do things very much behind firewalls. I think Ed has some really cool demos of running things completely locally in your browser or on your machine. So you can benefit from AI without always going to the public AI cloud. And again, all of these things that I'm showing you, they are all up on a GitHub repo. Let me see if I can pull this up really quick. Maybe this one, or no, not that one, this one. Yep, so github.com, Telerik WAC, Smart AI Components. That's where all of this lives. And while I'm on my browser, let me show you two more things. Ed, I'm going to borrow 1 more minute from you here. So again, experimental things that we have been playing around. This is a modern web app, and it's got some calendars, it's got some charts and graphs and some bunch of things, but we can style it with some AI help. Again, this one here, I can go do a Barbie theme, which is all pink, and I can generate a theme, which means colors, typography, spacing, all types of things, they all turn pink. I can do a very, maybe it's hard to read here, so let's do a .NET purple, right? In this case, we expect it to be purple, maybe a little bit more readable. So we are essentially going off the AI and asking for some styles. And now we get some purple back. Again, based on the style of what you are trying to do, we can, dynamically style your web UI components. This is also squarely in Ed's territory here, but I'm going to just take a second here. We have what's called the Blazor REPL, and we can help you write code and share it very easily with your fellow developers. But if you don't have it in code spaces, none of it is actually wired up to use GitHub Copilot, we can perhaps help. So what if I say, show me code for Blazor grid with filtering and sorting, right? And we go ask our little AI assistant. This is again all experimental. It's just hooked up to a small model that we have running. So we can't let everyone use it yet, but we are just thinking of things that might be potentially useful for you folks. So it's thinking, the ninjas are working hard, going off, and it comes back. Here's some data here with like a product, and I got some products 1, 2, and 3, which is hard to sort, but you can see the sortable is true, paging is true, filter mode is true. And given this is REPL, I can just run it right here. And I will get a little Blazor grid with sorting and filtering right in there. And we are considering things like bringing some of this into, GitHub Copilot type experiences, so you can use it from Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. So all types of experimental things we can do to light up your experiences. So with that, I am going to stop. Ed, why don't you take over with all things web?
So we're going to talk about the updates that came with Blazor and Aspire in ASP.NET Core in .NET 9. Now, ASP.NET Core is like the full stack development toolchain for doing anything web. You've got Blazor on the front end, you've got ASP.NET Core on the back end, and you can build your web APIs, you can work with data, you can work with AI, and all of that from one code base. It is absolutely amazing. I love it. I'm going to show you how all of that works together seamlessly in just a few minutes with some demos. So in .NET 9, there was a lot of quality of life improvements. So there was a lot of churn in .NET 8 with things like ASP.NET and Blazor. And this time we didn't get a lot of brand new features, but we got a lot of stability, better developer experience, improved hot reloading, and additions to Aspire to make it better. There's also been a big push by Microsoft to make all of these things much more performant and faster. This is going to alleviate those server overheads that you may have or any kind of wait times that your end users might be having. So throughput is up, memory usage is down, and startup time for Blazor has been decreased. So this is a big improvement on the .NET 8 release that we had, and every release that we get of .NET in the last couple of years has had improvements on performance and memory, and this one is no different. And of course, we've been working with Microsoft all the way along since the first preview of .NET 9 up until the release. So we have day zero support for .NET 9 across all of our DevCraft products. So make sure you check out our new bits. And I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about .NET Aspire today. As Sam was saying, there's a lot of AI going on in the industry, and a lot of our users are trying to figure out where it fits in their stacks and in their businesses and where they can use it. And the latest release of Aspire has some really nice tooling that's going to help you with that. And that's part of this streamlined inner loop that Microsoft's talking about with .NET Aspire, the integrations, the developer dashboard, and the whole development ecosystem happening here in .NET Aspire. So let's take a look at some code. Let's break away from some slides for a bit and see some of this stuff in action. I'm going to start with a little bit of an integration between Aspire and Blazor. And this is going to be a handy demo to give you an idea of how you can use on-premises machine learning, large language models, and all of that inside of your Blazor applications and get that inner developer loop where you don't have to keep calling out to these external APIs and spending money trying to develop with AI. You can do this locally. So the first thing I want to do is start up this application. I've got a couple projects in here in this solution. We've got an app host and this service defaults, which is kind of a settings file that connects the two applications together through .NET Aspire. And then I have a Blazor application with some Telerik front end stuff on it that's going to make it look nice. So when I run this application, this is going to boot up .NET Aspire and give me a nice dashboard that looks into all of the services that I have connected together and running in my ASP.NET application ecosystem. So you'll see that I've got an app here that's running. And I have some files here that seem to be downloading. And then I have my Telerik Blazor application running. So if I click on localhost there, it's going to show me my Blazor application. So I have that nice dashboard that lets me launch off into these apps that are loading in my Aspire resources. And if I go into my chat and I try to say hello here, I hit generate, and this is going to call out to my AI chat interface. And notice I'm hitting a 404 exception here. It says response code does not indicate success, 404 not found. Well, the problem here is that I'm using Aspire and I'm booting up several applications in this pipeline of apps, and some of those apps depend on each other. So this first container is running an Olama chat interface for doing AI work, but it's still waiting for its large language model to download locally. I'm not accessing this API from the cloud. I'm trying to run it on premise. And it's still downloading the large language model. Therefore, my app can't run yet. So when I try to access that API, it blows up with a 404. So what they added in .NET 9 is a way to chain these events together so you don't have apps spinning up ahead of other dependencies when you have different microservices that depend on one another before they can run. So what I can do is come into my Telerik app that depends on these large language models before they can run, and I can come in and say, wait for that model to load. And then I'm going to wait for my embedding model to load as well, because I'm doing some RAG, some retrieval augmented generation here, using some large language models and embedding. So now I'm waiting on these two models to load in before this Telerik project kicks off. And to make things even better, I'm going to come up here and tell it to use a data volume. So every time I load these up, I don't have to wait for them to download. And now when I run the application, everything should work as it should. So my Olama host will spin up, my large language models will download, And then since they're already on disk now, it's gone ahead and spun up my Blazor application. And I can come in and chat with my local chatbot. So I can say hello here and hit generate, and it should respond back. And this is the Telerik AI chat prompt interface that we have that you can completely customize for your own chat experience and make it as custom as you'd like. We'll do a little bit of the RAG demo that Sam showed earlier as well, where you can populate some questions ad hoc and do things like that. So it came back and it said, hello, I can assist you today. This is all happening local on my machine. I'm not making any connections out to any third-party services. I'm not paying for tokens, I'm not paying for the server here. However, I do want to say I have quite a beefy system here. So if you're going to try something like this out, you do need some processing power on hand. I'm using an NVIDIA 2080 Ti, and it's got about 128 gigs of onboard memory to work with. So I can use these large language models locally and do development, and they're going to respond pretty quickly. So mileage may vary there depending on what type of equipment you're using. So we've got our large language models running locally here. We had a question about doing semantic search and whether or not you could use different languages across semantic search. And I did respond in chat, but I wanted to address it to the large audience as well. A lot of these things depend on what models you're using, what data they're trained on, and also how the embedding gets embedded. So how that vectorization happens. So depending on the model that you're using for both of those things, you may get different results. So I could come in here and change up my, let's see if I got my other, yeah.
So
So I could
while you're
do a different language here, and I could say hello, this is in Bulgarian. It's going to speak Bulgarian back. So it does depend on the model. If it hasn't been trained on that language, obviously it can't reply in that language. And if the vectorization, the embedding model doesn't have those trainings as well, it can't make the vectors that connect those contexts together. What were you going to say, Sam?
I was going to say, nice of you to respond to a question with a demo. But yes, absolutely, it depends on the languages. And while or before you switch gears, just another thing that might be relevant for everyone. There might still be doubts in developer minds as to what exactly is .NET Aspire. So don't just trust us. Go look up some of the content from .NET Conf. It is an opinionated stack and a set of tools for building observable distributed cloud native apps. And that is a mouthful. What it comes down to is, no app just lives in a silo. So you likely have services, you likely have databases, you likely have a bunch of things that you're putting together, maybe multiple apps, and all of them can be lit up in a single dashboard with chained dependencies. That's what it comes down to.
There is a question on what exactly is .NET Aspire, and it's
Yeah.
more or less an opinionated pattern to do exactly what you just said, Sam, is to connect all of these web-based microservices together in an orchestrator. So I can come into this orchestration file here. This is a quote distributed application builder, and it's basically a pipeline in any .NET project or microservice that I want to add in here. There are different helper methods that I can call add. This one in particular just adds Olama, and without a .NET project at all, just adding this add Olama um, pipeline into the interface here, I can chain this all together, and I can even, I'll uncomment this one because this is actually really cool stuff. I can say with open web UI, and this will actually bring in a web interface, and I'll reboot the application here and it'll bring that in. And we can see this all spin up in the .NET Aspire dashboard. This is the .NET Aspire dashboard, and this is a dashboard into all of your microservices running in the orchestrated environment. And it will provision Docker files for you as well. You'll see Dockers running in the background here. And this is my Olama host. And I also have, oh, that's my models it downloaded when I added the uh, with data volume. It actually went into my Docker container and added that data volume. so it can save off that 4.6 gigabyte large language model that I had to download, so I don't have to do that every time the app loads. That gets to get quite monotonous. And then you can see I'm running some services in this container as well. And those are my services I have in this method chain here. And if I go back to my resource manager, this is a dashboard into .NET Aspire. And these are all of the things that I have chained into that environment. And another nice thing about this is it's going to organize all of my endpoints by name. And I don't know if I can drag these around, but this name or this endpoint corresponds to the name column that you see here on the left. And I can use these names in my application instead of trying to keep track of all of these endpoints. So this is going to make deployment a lot easier because I don't have to go back and put in different environment variables, whatever, to connect all of these things back together in different environments. It's going to take care of all of that for me. And you can see some of that when we register these services. I've got my model, my embedding here, and they're named model and embedding. If I jump over to my Telerik Blazor application and look at my program CS file, you'll see me reusing that model and that embedding there. And those tie together the addresses for those services. So I don't have to come in here and put localhost and remember a bunch of numbers. It's going to do all of that for me. The URIs are built into those names. So Aspire is orchestrating all of this for me. So let's circle back for a minute and look at that Olama container that I added. And I added a line that said add a web interface. If I click on that, it's going to spin up an official Olama test interface here. So I can come in and try all of the models out directly without my own UI. This is a built-in UI that it comes with, and I can come in and chat with it here as well. So this is without any custom UI. So you can just focus on maybe prompt engineering, whatever it is that you'd like to do here. And then you can switch over to your application and focus in on putting in those prompts that you engineered and building your application out. So with that, we can jump over to our RAG solution here. And this is using the Blazor PDF viewer. And this is a little bit different from Sam's demo. So Sam's demo, I think you're using the Smart Components library that Microsoft put out as an experiment. I've updated this one to include some new preview bits that are part of the Microsoft Extensions.AI library that is coming out. So these are all in preview right now, but this is going to be the official way from Microsoft to work with all of these AI bits. This is going to be the ground-based interface, the BCL basically, for all the AI stuff. So this one does the same thing, but it's using a little bit of updated technology. So I can come into my AI assistant here and you can see it has pre-populated the different questions based on the document that was loaded in. So we can jump over to some code and see exactly how this all works. If we go into components, and then we'll take a look under RAG sample here. So I've got my Telerik PDF viewer here, and I have a custom toolbar that has the AI prompt built into it. And you'll see that it has an on-prompt request. That's what's going to happen when I click on the button. And then I have a prompt suggestion list. And that is the list of the 3 prompts that you saw in the UI. So you'll see it has this prompt suggestions area here. This is actually data bound to some live data that's coming in from the AI model. So what we'll do is we'll drive down into the code here. And when we create the component, on after render async is going to get called, and it's going to go out and load the document in. You could do this with our document processing libraries. This one's using the data that's being loaded into the component itself directly, so it's pulling it from the data in memory. So it does that with a little bit of a JavaScript right there. So it pulls in all of that text data, chunks it up, and then passes it off to the AI. And it says, you're a helpful AI assistant. Analyze this text. Give me 3 questions that we can prompt the user with. There's 3 questions. I want them in this format. And we're going to call that method out to our chatbot. And then we'll go ahead and get those prompt suggestions back and throw them in a list. So we'll serialize those back, put them in a list, and when we do that, they show up here in prompt suggestions. So these prompt suggestions aren't hard coded in. Somebody didn't come in here and type these in. It's actually taken all the text from the document and been asked to form 3 questions from the PDF that could be prompted to the user to ask the user. So that's pretty cool. And then we can go ahead and ask the question based on those prompts. Now, this is locally again, so this might take a quick second for it to respond back. And I've got, let's see, go to webinar, and I've got Aspire running. I've got a lot going on this machine. So it does take a split second to come back. But again, we get our results back from the content of that PDF. All of this is being done through RAG. So what it's doing here is when you click on that generate button, we'll jump back over into the code and unpack some of this again. It is going to call this handle prompt request that's coming from our Telerik AI chat component. So that event gets raised from the button click, and then the user's search prompt gets injected here, and it's going to go through and search through a in-memory vector database and get back the results that match what the user typed in. And this is where I said it depends on the model and the embedding that you use if it's going to be a question asked in a different language. You may need to process either the vectors differently or the question differently. You may need to do some translation before it gets searched, or you need to support those languages in the vector database. So that's the part in the code that you may need to change some things up. Other than that, large language models generally handle things across languages very, very well. So this is our updates with Aspire and how they integrate with our development lifecycle within ASP.NET Core. And we're going to go ahead and move on to talk a little bit about Blazor. So Blazor had multiple improvements in .NET 9 that are going to be quality of life improvements, especially for us developers. One of those things is to detect whether the component is rendering on the client or the server. Your end users probably could care less, but as developers, you know that you might want to change out some of the implementation details, UI components, etc., depending on where the application is running to give people a better user experience. So you can actually do that now through some simple APIs. There's also some improved reconnection logic. This is when you get disconnected from a Blazor server app. There's a new set of messages and nicer reconnection logic that gets you back into the application. There's also opportunities to save state in that process as well, but you need to customize those for your application. And static server-side rendering is enabled by default and globally available in the application. And you can also enable this on a per-page basis, which is nice. We have some new Telerik template UI building templates that can make nice static pages for your applications for things like advertising, marketing, things that don't need to be interactive. And you can just host those pages up as static assets now instead of having to worry about Blazor server, Blazor client, etc. You can just host those up as static pages within an interactive app. So you can opt into these as well. Authentication has been fully moved to Blazor UI now, and the serialization of state has been approved in that process. And there's some other small stuff in here like component constructor injection, and then Sam was showing off the Blazor hybrid web template. So let's take a look at some more Blazor demos with a little bit of the .NET 9 Blazor stuff. This is going to be, again, an application that uses some .NET Aspire. So you'll see that spin up when we start the application. We'll get a nice Aspire dashboard again, so I can show off one of the new features here. So we've got our .NET 9 project. We can click on our link and load it up in the browser. Then I'm going to go to my counter page, click a couple counts, and I want to show that disconnect and reconnect feature that was added in .NET 9. So we need to split the browser up here so we could see this just right. So let's get our Aspire app up on the left and our running application up on the right. I'm going to pause this app for a minute. I'm going to stop it. Notice this immediately came up with a rejoining server dialog. This is that reconnection state that was improved in .NET 9. So if we start the app back up, the client side should see that application come back online and be able to reattach itself successfully. So it says rejoining server, fingers crossed, live demos, right? This should come back online on its own. There it goes. All right. It had me sweating for a second there. But it came back. It did reset the count to 0. This is something that you need to step in as a developer and keep that state alive, whether it's in memory storage or taking that state elsewhere and repopulating it on a reconnection. But at least we have a nice interface for that and API for it now. So we have the ability to reconnect on Blazor server. Some more of the improvements that we have here. Let's go back and run. I've got another chat demo here, and notice my chat demo is not working. It blew up with one of those little yellow ribbons at the bottom. We've got an unhandled error has occurred. So what's happening here? Let's take a look at the page, and you can see that we have some unresolved JavaScript module. So it says failed to resolve module specifier web LLM. So my large language model here is based inside of the browser. This is taking AI in a different direction. This is future thinking me here going, well, what if I could run that entire large language model in the browser? You saw I have, a pretty hefty graphics card running on this machine. Not everybody's going to have that. Why would I want to run a large language model in the browser, embedded in the browser? These things are going to get faster. Our hardware is going to get faster. I think we'll see a day where these things are not only embedded in the browser because we brought them there, but companies like Google are experimenting with including them in the browser by default. So we may actually see APIs surface in the browser where we can just chat directly with a large language model and not have to make any calls outside of the browser APIs themselves. So just doing a little bit of forward thinking here, trying to pull one in, and I'm getting an exception because it can't find the downloaded JavaScript modules. So what's happening in this app? Well, let's go over to the app.razor file and take a look at what's happening in the head of the application. So there's some improvements in .NET 9 around static assets. So you'll see we have a new static asset tag, and this little helper here, this at assets, is telling ASP.NET Core that this is a static asset, and when we publish this application, you can go ahead and replace this URL with a custom URL for the tightly compressed version of this file. So and I'll pull the application up in a minute so we can look, but essentially all of these static assets in CSS, these could be images or other types of static assets, these are going to get broadly compressed when we publish the application. So these will essentially be different unique identifiers that will have a .br file extension on them. And these are serving as placeholders now for that compressed file. So we'll use that at asset for all of those type of things. And then underneath of that, I have an import map. Now, import map is the Blazor team forward thinking here in using a brand new browser feature that allows us to create an import map of all of our JavaScript files, so we can do compression and all of that on all of our JavaScript as well, and keep that organized in one place. So import map is going to create a script tag of type import map. And if you look this up on Can I Use or something like that, it's going to show you that this is a brand new browser feature. This has just been implemented across all of the major browsers. So you may not have seen this before. And if we run our app one more time, we'll go ahead and look at where that gets emitted in the document. So we'll pull up our Blazor app, and I'm going to do a quick inspect on that. And then inside of the head tag, you'll see a script type import map in here. And if I expand upon that, there is a list of JavaScript items here under or JSON object that has imports, integrity, and there are some other properties that we can add in there. The imports is going to be all of the JavaScript modules that are being imported into the application and what names they get mapped to. And then integrity, if you look at this, you have an SHA. This is a hash that is telling the application this is the hash code that belongs to that JavaScript file. So if you're working in a very secure environment, you can reassure that this is the correctly fingerprinted JavaScript file that came in, and validate the hash right here in this import map. So we can control all of that inside of our Blazor app. And to do that, we will come back over to this import map, and I've got this commented out so I don't have to write it all over again on a live show. We're going to call into cascading parameters, HTTP context. And what this is going to do is it's going to get that existing import map that you saw being rendered in the browser already. We're going to recreate that because we want to add to it. But if I apply some changes, it will overwrite those. I don't want to overwrite, I want to append. So I'm going to get the existing import map, and then I'm going to add to it my own custom JavaScript file. And I'm going to go ahead and just grab this one from a CDN. This is going to be my large language model that I'm going to pull into the browser called WebLLM. That's the name I'm going to give it. And we'll go ahead and save this. And if I go over to my program, or sorry, my WW root file, you will see that my interop file is importing WebLLM from WebLLM. So now I just connected those services together. So this is pulling from WebLLM. And in app.razor, I'm saying WebLLM comes from this CDN. Go get it. And when I run the application again, that import map will be generated, stuck in the head of my document, and the browser will know where to fetch that information from. So we can pull this up again. Now I can come down to my chat component. I might have to do a reload here. Still getting an error. So let's do an empty cache, hard reload. There we go. And nope, that did not. Oh, I know what I'm missing. I missed a piece of code that was supposed to go up into my import map. So I wrote the code, I did not connect the dots. This needs the import map definition, and the map definition is called map definition. So now when the application loads, it gets the map definition and applies it to the import map. Important bit there. I missed that, so now it should run perfectly fine. This is going to spin up. Click over to chat, and it'll say loading. And again, this is a large language model, so it's going to take a second. A couple megabytes of data there. It's not as big as the one that I'm using on my other Aspire app that was like 4 gigs. This one's a couple megs. It's not quite as extensive, but yeah, we can chat with it. Let's try, what's a good recipe for apple pie? And then we can see immediately it just starts writing out to the browser, because this is all one inner loop. There's no web API calls. It's calling a JavaScript function that's running the large language model in the browser locally. So we're getting a response back immediately from it and writing it out to the Blazor application. All right. So those are all new features that you can take advantage of in your Blazor application. And then let's revisit the optimized web assets really quick as well. So I should have a browser tab. Let me go find that guy. Where did it go? Maybe it's a new browser. All right. There we go. I'll just type it in really quick. This is the application deployed in Azure. And we saw that import static assets method that we use to pull the static assets into the head of the document. And now we've got these files in here, and you'll see they kind of have a little bit of a gibberish attached to them. So I've got app.ky, blah, blah, blah. This is the compressed and fingerprinted version. So if there's ever a change to this file, it will get a new fingerprint, and that'll cache bust for that file. And then we also have the broadly compressed files in here. So if I do a network tab now, and let's do an empty cache and hard reload, we should be able to see in here. I'm trying to remember where to find these guys. There are, actually, I might need to just click on them. And if we look in the data here, we should be able to see that these are broadly compressed. They're encoding, BR. So these are broadly compressed files, and the file sizes on these things are ridiculously small. So all of Bootstrap is just 23.2 kilobytes. My web LLM interop should be in here somewhere. It may not be loaded on this page, but all of these are ridiculously small. Even the Blazor runtime here at 1.88 kilobytes, that's not the .NET runtime, that's just the JavaScript bits for that. All this getting completely compressed down as small as possible. So all that's being done through that new static assets loading mechanism that we can see here in the head of the page. So that is all of your improvements in Blazor in .NET 9. Let me show one more thing before I close up here. We didn't talk about showing the run modes. So let's talk about that really quick. We can actually show where in the application or what part of the application this is running in. Is it Blazor server? Is it Blazor client? And if you look at the head of the document here, we've got the render mode is set to interactive auto. So this application runs both server side and client side. And as a developer, I would like to know when that is happening because I might need to make decisions. So I'm going to go over to my counter page. No. Yes, where did I place this code at? If I can't find it, I'll just type it in really quick. It's tiny. So we have this new render info API. I'll copy and paste so we don't have to write this out again. And on my counter page here, I'm going to put an H2 tag. So say H2, and then I'll say at render info, and I'll call the name property on this, and then we'll run the application again. So now I have render info.name on my counter page, and that should tell me if this is a client-side Blazor application or a server-side Blazor application. So if I come over to counter, it's currently running on the server. So let's do a quick empty cache hard reload here. Let's go to application, and let's dump all of the data for the site. And then we'll clear it. Okay, so I'm on server. And now when I just refresh the page, it should switch over to WebAssembly. So what that's doing is it's giving me the best experience possible as a user, because when I hit the application with no cache whatsoever, I don't have the .NET runtime. So instead of waiting for that .NET runtime to download off the server before the app is interactive, it's going to give me a server interactive mode. And then when I refresh the page, I'm refreshing a cached instance of the application, and I already have the .NET runtime that's been downloaded. Therefore, it's going to switch over to WebAssembly. And if you looked really close, you might have seen it say static in between. So sometimes you can catch it say static there, and you'll notice that the button is being disabled while it's static. And that's because WebAssembly takes a split second to boot up, and we don't want some pro gamer in there clicking on buttons before the application loads up. So if we go over to our counter page, you can see, oh, wrong application, helps if I have the right demo that we're looking at. I have the disabled attribute tied to another render info API method called isInteractive. And if it's not interactive, we're going to disable the button. And it's only going to do that on the static served version. So for a split second, the application, ASP.NET Core application, is going to serve a static HTML file. And then Blazor server is going to take over, or Blazor WebAssembly is going to boot up and take over. When one of those two things happens, the button gets enabled again, and then the user can click on it. So that gives you an API that you can leverage for different things. One thing this is really helpful for is automated testing. So your automated tests can run faster sometimes than any human interacting with your page. So you might have to throw this isInteractive flag around something to make sure it doesn't get tested until it's ready. So there's a little handy tip for you. And that's the last update I've got, Sam.
Now, some of you were asking about mixing and matching things in desktop, which is very nice to see because it's all not throwing away your investments and reusing as much of it as possible. So, which is really nice to do. All of the good stuff that Ed is showing you here with Blazor. I have an app open here, which is bringing some Blazor goodness, like Telerik goodness, into native apps, and it's really nice to see how nicely all of that works. So this is a MAUI with Blazor. You can see this is running on .NET 8. I'll get to that in a second because you can upgrade from 8 to 9 pretty easily. But if I run this on a Mac, you will see that in that index.razor page, I have just dropped in half a dozen just random Blazor UI. And they're all meant to be for web apps, but you can see that, it doesn't stop the rendering on mobile or desktop as well. So that's a barcode, that's a calendar, and that's like a card UI. One thing to note is when you interact with this on desktop, like when I click on that date dropdown, you see that date experience, the calendar experience, but we can do some adaptive mode, and this is stuff we are working on. So please let us know if this is of interest. When I shrink this enough, you can see that it kind of bootstrap kind of kicks in, and you get that hamburger because now it's recognized that we are doing some responsiveness here. But now if I click on that drop down again, you get a calendar view that is much more touch friendly. So this is the kind of adaptive stuff that we can bring to the table. So you have much more flexibility as you're reusing your web UI in native mobile and desktop. Another question that was asked, and let me see if I can actually show this live on screen or fail, but we'll give it a try. So let me pull up a modern app here. Let's just say, yeah, maybe this one here. So if you look at any modern app here that is .NET, you get a target framework or the runtimes that we are targeting. If you are already on .NET 8, good for you because you're on one of the most latest .NETs out there. But every .NET, Stephen too takes the time to write up performance. It almost reads like a novel, like just how many things deep inside .NET that they are performance tuning to get you the best possible thing. So if you need to switch, this is a very easy switch. So in this case, let me see if I can do this live. I'll bump it up. And now the nice thing here in a MAUI project is your references are automatically taken care of because all of those are now being pulled down as a NuGet package. You can see the MAUI dependencies as well as the Telerik dependencies. Those are all NuGet packages. You just need to make sure those NuGet packages work. And the other thing you may want to do is blow away your cache. Always blow away your cache because otherwise it's going to reuse the things that are already in there. So let me go in here really quickly. Here's my bin, debug, and this is all the .NET 8 stuff. So I am going to blow it away. And same with OBJ. I'm going to go ahead and blow it away. And now if we go back and run this, hopefully everything will be good, and we'll be back to running on .NET 9 runtime. So that's how easy it is. No, I'm getting errors, so I need to clean up more, but you get the idea. So this is how, oh, it's not finding some of my Xamarin and older SDKs, because now I also need to handle the simulators because it's targeting a more modern version of iOS that this project is not meant to be. So other than that, the 8 to 9 shift should be fairly easy. Let this be the one last thing we show, and this is completely experimental. So tell us if stuff like this will be of any use to you. So I'm going to show you a very experimental thing that is purely on my personal machine. This is not something anybody is endorsing, but think about Copilot chat. Think about AI and how it helps you write code faster, some of the automatic stuff. What we are doing here is, just injecting a little helper in there that knows a little bit more about Telerik or Kenda UI that Copilot might not know. And this is firing off to a local model, but for everything else, we'll go to GPT-4 as Copilot uses. So if I go ahead and run this now, you will see that it spins up a thing, and let me start up a new chat here. So this is Copilot. As you can see, let me minimize this a little bit. Sure, this extension failed, that's fine. But now if I do an @ you will see that in addition to Workspace and VS Code and Terminal, I have these two extra ones here. These are maybe specific ones that know how to do stuff well. So GitHub Copilot Chat Agent that helps you with contextual Telerik stuff. So for everything else, like if I just say hello in here, it just passes it off to Copilot, because there is no reason for us to chime in. It's only when we can provide additional values when we want to come in. For example, if you ask us about Yoda, we can say, may the force be with you, because now we're intercepting that chat and doing stuff. So again, if I do very specific things like show me code around Telerik Blazor grid UI with sorting, right? Now, Copilot might be able to respond to this, fairly well. But if it's just a brand new piece of UI, or if it's deep in the docs, something that Copilot has not had a chance to learn, because all of large language models that are public, they are marked in time, right? Because their learning is based on a certain time beyond which it doesn't know unless it's trained again. So here you can see a custom model coming in and saying, oh, here's a Blazor data grid. Here is sortable set to true. Here are the products, and here's how you go render this. So again, similar to the REPL, now we can copy paste, we can iterate on this to make this a little better. Ed, were there any other questions that we could answer?
Just in addition to posting that code, there was a question about I think the web LLM that I was using. If you just do a quick search for web LLM, you'll find the web embeddable language model that I used. It's just got a little GitHub repo out there, and it supports a lot of like Olama stuff, so it's pretty interesting. But we'll publish some demos that you can use as well. We actually
Excellent.
have
Yeah.
a Blazor REPL out there that you can use to see that.
Hopefully that you see that modern .NET is very polished, very welcoming to everybody. Performance is top notch. You can cater to just about every platform, every device you can think of. Tooling is great. Ecosystems are great. What's not to like? So here's to your productivity, and hopefully you see with Telerik DevCraft and Kenda UI and design and our experimental AI things, we are always trying to make you more productive. Use things the way it suits you, your app, your workflow, your enterprise, or your hours of nights and weekends. Whatever we do is for your productivity.
We did do a couple more these style demos on the last Telerik webinar that we had, so that one should be
Yeah.
up on the YouTube page as well. If you want to see additional demos, pull that up on YouTube, scan through it. You'll see one on there where I did a AI interface with a data grid for natural language processing, so talking
Mm-hmm.
to a Telerik data grid, which is pretty interesting. And I'm still kind of finalizing the code on that one so we can get it up on the web for people to try out.
Thank you all so much, and that's it from us.